Hey there. So, we're talking about how to learn new expressions in English through the integrated learning system. So, this is the step-by-step guide, and we're on step number 4, learning new expressions using your text and audio. We've already talked about listening, developing your reading, increasing your vocabulary, and now we're moving into new expressions, which is extremely important to helping you become a more fluent and natural speaker. Because when you think in your mother tongue and you try to speak in English, you're going to normally translate a lot of the expressions that are familiar to you in your culture. But to English speakers, they may not make much sense if you translate them literally. So as you learn the proper expressions, the proper chunks of words to use together, it will allow you to express your ideas more clearly and efficiently. So this is a powerful speaking upgrade. This is a powerful way to increase your English speaking skills so that people understand you and so that you understand other people. We're going to be looking at different kinds of chunks of words that exist when you're learning language. We're going to talk about how to learn your new expressions and the importance of reviewing them frequently so you don't forget them. And then I'm going to be giving you a bonus speaking tip. This is something called filler phrases and how you can use them to drastically upgrade your English so you don't stutter and stumble and you speak more naturally. It's pretty cool. I used this when I was learning French, and the first time I used them on my French teacher, he was shocked. I could see the look of shock in his eyes. His mouth dropped open, and he said, "Where did you learn how to talk like that?" And he was just blown away. So if you start using expressions and chunks of words properly, and if you take it to the next level using filler phrases the way I'm going to show you, you are going to speak much better English. So learning new expressions is extremely important because even though you're not speaking yet, you're still in the learning phase. Once you get to the point where you start speaking in the speaking steps, you will be a much more powerful and efficient speaker. Okay? So let's talk about the different chunks of words that exist in a language and different kinds of expressions that you can learn. So, we have collocations, phrases, idioms and expressions or idiomatic expressions, jargon, and phrasal verbs. So let's talk about each one of these, what they are, how they work, and how you can use them, and I'll give you a few examples. So let's start with collocations. Collocations are just simply the way words are grouped together. Natural groups of words. So if you translate literally from your mother tongue into English, you're going to use collocations that are normal in your language but don't make sense in English. So if you learn to use collocations correctly, if you pay attention to the word chunks that you see in your text and the word chunks that you hear when you're listening, you will sound more fluent and natural when you start speaking. So let me give you an example of collocations in different languages. Here's an example for you. In English, we use the term fresh water to refer to river water and lake water. That means water that doesn't come from the sea. Water in the sea is salty, we call it salt water. And so water that's not salty, that doesn't come from the sea, we call fresh water. However, in Brazil, in Portuguese, when we refer to river water and lake water, we say água doce. Água doce, translated literally, means sweet water. Água means water and doce means sweet. So if an American came to Brazil and he was talking with somebody and the Brazilian said, "This is sweet water," the American would not understand what he was saying. What do you mean sweet water? Does it have sugar in it? He wouldn't understand that it was fresh water, meaning that it just wasn't salty. In the same way, if someone from Brazil were to go to America or Great Britain or some English-speaking country, and they said this was sweet water, they heard people talking about fresh water, it wouldn't make sense. If they were talking with someone and someone said agua fresca, that wouldn't make any sense to them. What do you mean, agua fresca, okay? Because to a Brazilian, the term is sweet water, agua doce, and to an English speaker, it would be fresh water, agua fresca. So these are examples of collocations that you can't just simply translate literally from your mother tongue when you're learning English. So just pay attention when you're reading and when you're listening to the way words are used. What kinds of words are used together? How are words grouped together and what do they mean? So you can't just translate things literally. You have to learn what the expression as a whole means. Now, if we come to phrases, all right, these are simple groups of words. These could be clauses, short parts of sentences. So initially, when you're learning phrases, you're learning to say simple things like, I like chicken and I like chocolate. You're just learning the proper way to form sentences. You're learning how to join words, which technically is called grammar, but we're not using the meta language of grammar and this is a subject, this is a verb, this is a pronoun. When you're looking at the phrases as a whole, you're looking at how words are used together. This is a common problem with students. Students say, David, how can I learn to join words together properly to form sentences? Well, you have to learn. And that's part of what you do when you're reading and listening. So now as you're getting ready to speak, you're learning how to join them yourself. So initially, you can learn simple phrases and then learn how to join them together to create more complex sentences. You may have already seen Mauri's video on 3 tips for speaking better English. We were discussing this very concept, and he was telling me some of the things that he used to do when he was learning English, and he actually explained this the way he used it. So you can go back and watch that video. It's on our YouTube channel or on the blog, 3 tips for speaking better English with Mauri, where he explains how that works. You can watch his video. So then we take it to the next step where we're not just talking about how to form phrases, but we're using specific expressions that have strong cultural meaning, cultural phrases, things that express a feeling or an idea. So let's look at an example here of an idiomatic expression in English and Portuguese. In English, we would say, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, which literally means that you're going to do two things at one time, or you're going to do one thing that will get you two different results. But if I were to say in Portuguese, vou matar dois pássaros com uma pedra, that would sound funny, because in Portuguese we say, vou matar dois coelhos com cajado. In other words, we say, I'm going to kill two rabbits with one staff. Okay, so you can't just simply go thinking in your mother tongue and try to translate into English, because it can cause confusion in the minds of the people you're speaking to. So if you want to speak in English with native speakers especially, then you need to learn to use the right kinds of idiomatic expressions so that you sound more fluent and natural. Okay, so let's talk about jargon. Jargon are specific technical terms or words that are understood by a specific group of people that are usually related by work or a study group, a specific kind of language that is understood only by people who deal in that areas. So doctors use a lot of jargon. They can speak about medical terms and use words that you and I don't understand. If you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't understand much of what they said. Or if we were talking with engineers or people who work in a mining setting, they would use specific vocabulary to refer to specific things that they do that most people don't even know what that is. Okay, so they might refer to a specific action that they perform or a specific object that they use that most of the population in general has never seen. So that's what jargon is. So if you're going into a specific situation or setting, then you need to learn the specific vocabulary, the specialized vocabulary that those people use, whether they're doctors or engineers or even working in a specific industry, then you have to learn the jargon that they use. And finally, we have phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are a specific type of multi-word verb. Usually what happens in most cases is that we join a verb and a preposition. So these are two words that have one meaning, which is complicated for people who are learning English if their language doesn't have this kind of vocabulary. So we have an example of a word like give up. Give, which means to deliver something to someone, and up, which means like pointing up in the direction. So if someone was learning English and they translated this literally into their language, they would imagine someone giving something in the direction above their heads to someone else, right? But that's not what it means. If you've been studying English for some time, you know that it means quit. So we have a lot of these in English, like get up, get over, get around, get by. And if we were to translate these into another language, like Portuguese, the example we've been using, each one would have a different meaning. So get up in Portuguese would be levantar. We'd have get over in Portuguese would be superar. So you can see that even though it's two words in English, that if we translated literally would not make sense, because in your mother tongue it would have a single meaning and you can't translate each word literally. So this is another kind of word that you have to pay attention to when you're reading and listening, and learn them and learn what they mean and how to use them. So let's talk about how to learn your expressions and collocations and phrases and jargon and all this new stuff that's going on. First of all, you're going to learn them like you did your vocabulary, in the sense that when you're reading the text, you're going to mark them up. You can make them bold, underline them, or highlight them just so that you know which ones they are. Usually, when I was doing this, I would make them red. If you look at the mini stories in the VIP English Club, you'll notice that we highlight all of the expressions in red. Just makes them stand out and you can visually see the whole expression. Once you've marked up the word chunks that you don't know, then you're going to try and guess their meaning. Just like before, you're going to put parentheses beside them and you're going to write in what you think that group of words means. Now you can try to translate literally, but if you notice that those words don't make sense when translated into your mother tongue, then you're going to realize that that's probably an expression. So then you have to take it on to the next level where you look at the original text, the other translation in your mother tongue, to see how that group of words is translated. What idea is it expressing? Or you can look it up in a translator to double check its meaning. Now, it's going to be kind of hard to look up the meanings of those expressions in a dictionary. When you're learning vocabulary, you can look it up in the dictionary, but with expressions it's harder because there are several words, and when they're joined together, they're not going to have the same meaning as a single word would, so that's why you can't translate them literally. So just like previously, you're going to mark up all the expressions that you don't know, and you're going to try to guess their meaning and compare them to the original text or look them up to see if you can figure out what that expression means. And then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and back it up and you're going to review them frequently. So you're going to back them up by using the same tools that you used with your vocabulary words. You can use flashcards, spaced repetition systems, or a personalized dictionary, and you want to use it often. Okay, we're not going to take a lot of time to go into this, but just to review, or if you haven't seen the vocabulary video yet, you can write them down on flashcards, which are simply a piece of paper where you write the expression on one side and you write the meaning or the translation in your mother tongue on the other side. And then you can put it in your pocket or purse and carry it with you, so when you're riding on the bus or you're stuck in line at the supermarket, you can pull them out and review. You can also put them into a spaced repetition system program like Anki or Memorize, and what that will do is show you which words to review. So the words that are easy that you're already learning, it will show you those words less frequently, and the words that are more difficult that you're having trouble learning, you will see and review more often. That way you don't waste time studying words that you already know. You can focus your time more efficiently. And you can write them in your personalized dictionary, which is simply a notebook or somewhere where you can keep track of the new words that you're learning and write down sample sentences using those expressions. So you review them and you can see how those words were used in context. Now, once you've done that, the important thing is just to remember to review them frequently. Remember that you most often learn fastest on the first day. So if you can review it several times that first day and then review it again frequently a couple of times over the next few days, that way you will review it or remember it much better. And then try to use it when you're speaking with other people. So the more you practice it, the better you will get. So here's an example of how you could review the expressions you're learning. So for example, on day one, you would learn a new phrase or an expression. So before you go to bed at night, or when you wake up in the morning, quickly review those expressions again. And then as much as you can throughout the day. Then on day 2, you would learn a new phrase or a new expression, and you would review the previous phrase that you learned the day before. Then on day 3, you would learn a new phrase or 2, or however many you see that day. And then you would also review the previous 2 phrases. So that way, as you go through the month, you're constantly learning new expressions, but you're also reviewing the old expressions that you saw on the previous days so you don't forget them. This is a common complaint that many students have because they say, David, I learn new words and expressions and I don't remember what they mean when I hear someone say them and I don't remember how to use them. That way, if you're learning new phrases, you're not just filling your head up with things you're going to forget. You're going to review them and you will see them consistently over a series of days, so that way you won't forget them. Or even if you do start to forget them, you'll bring them back to mind and recall them again before they fade away. All right, now this is the part I'm most excited about. This is the bonus speaking tip I promised you. And this is how you can use filler phrases to immediately boost your speaking and sound more natural. And this is something that I discovered while I was studying French. So let me tell you my story. Here's what happened. I had been studying French for a couple of months, and I've told you this story before. I'd been studying in class with a teacher and some other students. I was also studying a lot on my own and researching and looking at blogs and picking up language tips and testing things out to see what really worked for me and what was most efficient. And this was one of the tips that I picked up that was extremely efficient for beginning to speak better. So I don't remember where I first saw this. I think it was on Fluent in 3 Months, a blog by Benny the Irish Polyglot. And I don't remember if he referenced the other blogger, if the other blogger referenced him, but one of them referenced the other, and they were both talking about the use of filler phrases. And I thought it was interesting what they had to say, so I decided to learn some filler phrases and test them out myself. Now remember that filler phrases, like we talked about previously, are just the way words are joined together. So I just went ahead and learned some common filler phrases that Benny and this other guy referenced on their blogs and started learning them in French, just like I've been explaining to you. So I learned some basic expressions like, that is a very good question, thank you for asking. I feel that. Let me ask you the same question. How do you feel about? Okay, so I was just learning simple phrases that later I could join together. So after a day or two, I saw my teacher and I greeted him in French and he said, hello, how are you? And he asked something. I don't remember exactly what he asked, but basically I just used all of my filler phrases. I said, wow, that is a very good question. Thank you for asking. And then I said, I feel that, and I gave my answer. And then I said, let me ask you the same question. How do you feel about da-da-da-da? And went on and asked him the same question. And he was just shocked. His jaw dropped. And he said, where did you learn all that? Because normally when I spoke French, it was kind of broken and I stuttered and stumbled and I had to think, trying to answer people when they spoke with me. And here, as soon as he spoke to me, I answered right back with my filler phrases. That's a very good question. Thank you for asking. And then all I had to think about was the simple answer to the question. So basically, I spoke 4 long phrases and threw in a simple answer. So I had to think a little bit just to get my answer in there. But everything else I was able to say fairly quickly without stumbling, without having to think, because I had already learned those phrases. So that just demonstrated to me how powerful the use of filler phrases was. So if you think up different situations that you could be involved in, things that people would ask you, things that you say often, then just make note of those and learn how to say them in the language that you're learning. They're just simple phrases that you learn in the target language that you can use in between sentences to help you speak more quickly and efficiently. So if you think about the problems students face, problems you face when you're trying to remember how to say things in English, imagine how this could help you. All right? If you stutter and delay a lot when you're trying to speak and you don't know what to say, and the other person kind of gets bored and they want to leave, they get frustrated of listening to you talk, not understanding what you say because you're thinking, and so if you just have short, fast phrases, this provides you with a very elegant solution for speaking. So you can use large chunks of words without stuttering. It allows you to sound more fluent and natural and even engage the person you're talking to because they think, wow, this guy's just starting off. He's only been studying a short amount of time, but he can already give some fairly fluent answers. So obviously, if you look at it in this context, expressions are going to be harder to learn. They're not just simple words. There's no direct translation for the expressions. You can't just translate them literally word for word. You have to go in, you have to learn them. So yes, they can be complicated and tricky. But if you go back and use the tools that we gave you with the flashcards and spaced repetition system and the personalized dictionary, and you review them like I showed you here, learning new expressions and constantly reviewing the old ones that you saw, fairly quickly you can build up a fair amount of filler phrases and expressions that you can use to express yourself more fluently and naturally in English. And of course, you're going to be doing all of this using the text and audio, so you'll be learning the pronunciation, you'll be seeing how the words are used in context, and you'll be able to assimilate and internalize them as you go. Okay? So I hope that this explanation was helpful. As always, if you have any questions or feedback, please leave a comment, share your stories with us. We love to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and to the blog so that you'll be updated automatically when we release new videos. And of course, feel free to share this video with your family and friends, people who want to learn English that you feel would benefit, because I know they'll appreciate it and we appreciate you helping us to spread the word. So thank you very much. And in the next videos, we'll be talking about how you can master grammar structures with the integrated learning system, improve your pronunciation, and begin writing and speaking as well. Okay, so I'll see you then. Bye-bye and have a great day.